And boom.
Hi guys, welcome to OCD Real Talk. Who's this?
Who are
Who
these?
is
Who are these
Real Talk today?
strangers?
Exactly, these imposters. So we have Marianne and Elliot joining us for the first time. They've been here. They've been here on the channel for a few weeks. So yeah, we thought we would get to know some new people. We're bored of Sam and all Gemma and those boring folks.
We don't want anything
Um,
to do with Sam.
Exactly. I just want to boycott him for like 2 months now. Um, so yeah, we just thought we would talk to you guys about your OCD journeys, and that's all we want to get into because Elliot has had HOCD or sexual orientation OCD. Marianne has had harm OCD and existential OCD. So they're different themes, but there can be a lot of similarities. But Elliot, since E comes before M, let's start with you. Random rule. Uh,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so like, could you tell us like the initial years of you being like, oh, doubting your sexuality and
Yeah.
where did that come from and how was that like being confused and just at loss at like what was happening?
Yeah, for sure. So I first fell into OCD. It's a long time ago now. So I'm 26. So I was about 18. And what happened was I had a bit of a messy breakup. The standard teenage breakup, heartbroken and all that stuff. And it just really, really got me. And then obviously, sometimes OCD just latches. At the time I had no idea what was going on, but like I look back now and it was just like such a gripping OCD cycle. So I remember I was running around the football pitch playing football with my mates after this breakup, and the thought came into my head, oh yeah, because I'm not wanting to go out and date anymore, does that mean like I'm gay? And then all of a sudden OCD just latched on 24/7, 0 to 100 so quickly. It just felt so real. And like I just got into this cycle of just doing endless compulsions. So I was trying to like be attracted to women. I was double checking my sexuality all the time. I was just absolutely consumed in the cycle. It was just what I thought about the whole day, and it just felt so real. And like I just thought I was living a complete lie. I wasn't the person that I thought I was. And yeah, it just took over my life. I completely withdrew, stopped dating. Completely just didn't live my life. And it was really really tough. Like I didn't realize at the time what it was, but then I sort of just worked it out because I just googled it compulsively in a way. But I've always had like these OCD tendencies ever since I was a little kid. Like I used to have like little like obsessions, and I just thought, could this be OCD? And you're never actually going to know that, obviously, which is
Elliot, also just quickly in there, I want to ask as well, like, was there ever, especially like being around your friends when it kind of hit as well, and like, that kind of environment, was it also
yeah.
like, what would your straight male friends think of you if you turn out to be gay amongst them?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a fear of rejection in there. And that was one of the things that really latched on. So, for example, when I was with my group of friends, like, I'd avoid looking at guys. I'd compulsively talk about girls like all the time. Um, that'd be all that I spoke about. I'd be like, oh, she's really attractive. And yeah, the big driver there was fear of rejection from my friends. Then I also had it with fear of rejection from my family as well. So to tell you how
I
stupid it
wouldn't
gets,
want
right?
to hang out with you. Like,
Yeah,
if you were just talking about girls and being obsessively, I'd be like, this guy, can we talk about something different?
yeah. Honestly, it just
Yeah.
like looking
Mm.
back, it was so stupid. Like I remember there'd be situations where I'd be like with my dad, and like there'd be a guy walk past us, and I'll just look at the floor because I thought, oh, if my dad sees me looking at a guy, will he think this is me? Will he think I'm gay? And it was just it
Mm-hmm.
was just it was just so stupid. Like it was just such a fear of rejection, and that's such a core driver of OCD. Fear of rejection, fear of what other people think.
But you
Uh,
say stupid now. At the time, it was life or death.
Well,
Like
body dysmorphia
it's
is the
like,
same
oh
thing.
my god.
I mean,
yeah,
body dysmorphia is one fear and one fear only. It's the fear
yeah,
of rejection. I
yeah,
didn't see that at the time because I'm like, oh, it's the fear of not having muscle. But when I followed the trail back, it was the fear of rejection. It was
yeah.
like, this really does. Yeah.
Nick,
Yeah.
like curious question though. Like, was it so? And I see this with like other themes as well at times. Like, do you feel like it's yes a fear of rejection from society, but was it for you ever like a fear of you're rejecting yourself? Because sometimes it's like, what if I'm not able to accept myself? I won't be able to,
The fitness,
completely be
the
that with myself.
fitness industry is completely based off of the illusion that you need to look a certain way in order to accept yourself. So we see that, right? Go to the gym, build your confidence, accept yourself. And for most people, they can have that belief, non-OCD sufferers, and it can affect them, but it's not detrimental to them. But for OCD and anxiety sufferers, what happens is you'll, in your mind, with body dysmorphia, whether it's muscle or something else in your body, like a health-related fear, if someone has like patchy skin or anything like that, they'll think, yeah, being rejected by other people is really terrible, but I'm never going to be able to accept myself for who I am. And then you hear all this stuff in social media. You see like those big macho men where they'll say, oh, you can never accept yourself for who you are. That's a weakness. Like you have to be pushing. You have to grow. You have to. And then what happens is you end up sitting down. And if you think about it rationally, you say, I'm spending my entire day trying to prove something that can't be proved. It's not even possible.
Yeah. And I also had a lot of moments where I was afraid of my own judgment, not even people, like my own judgment towards myself. Like, I don't know, I was just, it was this internal, really fair cycle. But again, okay, we need to, let's shift gears to Marianne a little bit now.
Oh, I was gonna kick her. I was about to kick her out. Like I was like, oh, is Marianne still in here?
Yeah, we don't need her.
Sorry, it didn't work.
She has existential anyway. She might be thinking, wait, was I alone in this call? Were these people real? Go ahead, Marianne. So what were your initial like confusing OCD moments?
Yeah, so for me, I had OCD since I was a kid, but it wasn't like really chronic and I wasn't aware of it. I think at 17, I had like a panic attack. And then after this panic attack, like you removed someone and put someone else in reality. So it started with the harm OCD and the health OCD. And then the existential kicked in after a while. So the hard times were the confusion first with all those thoughts because I didn't know what was happening. And even after like knowing that it's OCD, we didn't have like in our, let's say society, we didn't have like lots of awareness about those disorders. So just to understand it at first was really hard, to do the research and like find the proper, let's say, resources for it. And then after it, went through therapy, but analyzing the past wasn't really like helpful. So yeah, discovering what is working was the hardest.
Marianne, did you look, when you initially looked things up, were you looking them up in your local language and in your mother tongue or in English?
In English, because in Arabic we didn't have. Now it's much better, but previously we didn't have resources in Arabic. And I'm not good
I think
at
it's
Arabic
like the same
well.
in Urdu. Oh, okay. I think it's the same in Urdu as well. We don't have like, in Urdu, we don't have even a word for OCD. So, I mean, and there's so many, like, there's also not a direct translation of the word anxiety. Like, there's similar words to it that can describe things like that, but there's no direct word for anxiety.
That's
so I think,
wild. That's crazy.
I wonder that. Like, how do people, or if there is a word, maybe I'm not aware of it. That's how obscure that word is. And it's just that I wonder sometimes that people who are not well versed in English, like, I can only imagine what they might do to try to seek help and like find out information. Yeah.
It's a struggle for people back then, like who didn't understand English or French. So it was hard to find like an article or at least one paragraph that really describes OCD in details, like just the main description. It was like just in Arabic, okay, a mental disorder that is based on anxiety and confusion, but it wasn't really with detailed explanation. So yeah, language is really like a barrier sometimes to be able to reach some resources that can help you.
Yeah. And so like what were some of the compulsions you were doing? Because at the time you might probably have thought that those compulsions were something that would help you, but obviously
Yeah.
you later probably realized those were compulsions. So what were some of those initially?
Yeah, so I'm smiling now because Nick will make fun of me. So I used to like sleep with the lights on because see, I knew it. I see. So I used to sleep with the lights on, and for example, if I'm alone at home, I do not take a shower if I'm alone at
Well,
home.
Mariana, you're leaving out the key part. Why did you sleep with the lights on? Why?
Because I had ghost OCD fears, like something will because like something will pop up or
But
like
it's
yeah,
not
and I was
okay.
massive.
I have to jump in there. I feel like in like kind of Islamic cultures a little bit, and in brown cultures, like spirits and ghosts are a huge thing, and it's a real legitimate
You know, she
fear.
didn't tell me
Yeah,
this
yeah.
moment. We have been working together, like, because I've done about the same amount of calls with Elliot and Mariana. And I remember, I can't remember when it came up, but it wasn't the first like 8 calls. And then somehow it got brought up. I said, are there any compulsions that you haven't told me? She said, I don't sleep in the dark. I said, what? I said, is that like a joke? Or but you're right, Moment. Like that is a cultural thing. I didn't know that at the time. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. But also the problem wasn't really with this belief of if the ghosts are real or not. It was like my anxiety that was really like huge towards this topic. Like I have, for example, a twin sister. She believes in the spirits and the ghosts, but she sleeps in full dark. So the issue here was the OCD around it, the fear around it, the fear of having something, weird popping up or being stuck with the image of the ghost forever, or like hearing the sounds forever, or like not being safe and not controlling, like the uncertainty of having something that you don't know about. So this was the real struggle,
Yeah.
and it was really challenging to start, turning the lights off, to like watch horror movies and sit with the discomfort. So it was really a challenge.
can I tell a story real quick, Moment? I think if you're okay with it, Mariana, when I realized how much progress you were making, I remember like both Elliot and you, when I realized like your perspectives were starting to shift. I'm sure Moment can relate. When you've done like 10 calls with someone, you start to realize how much different they are. Do you remember? Of course you remember, but remember with the ex-boyfriend, everything that happened, and you came to me and you rationally said, you're like, hey, like I caught him doing this. I'm going to approach him. I gave him a second chance. And I was just thinking about all the ROCD sufferers that would have just melted in that moment.
Yeah.
And thinking
Yeah,
about
that was also a turning point for me as well.
that was huge. It was massive. I mean, I remember thinking that, and I said, whoa. And Elliot, for an example, one of the big things we had to cover, which he remembers, is the fact of just going out and like talking to girls and like dating.
Yeah.
Like going out, like you're never going to feel the right time. You got to go.
No.
And
Yeah.
it's
I
wild.
sometimes joke with the people I work with. I sometimes joke with them because I'm putting them back into dating because they're avoiding it like anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh yeah, I have a girlfriend now, or yes, I had sex. So it's just like OCD recovery and dating and like sex services over here as well.
Sign me up.
Yeah, Elliot, by the way, like curious to know, like did you outside, because this happens, like everybody has like their main themes and their main fears. So for you, for
Yeah.
example, it was HOCD.
Yeah.
But they're always doing other compulsions on the side that are not entirely related to their big theme. So what were there any for you that you were doing?
Yeah, so I sort of had like ROCD mixed in a little bit. So what I'd try and do is like when I was like meeting girls and stuff or speaking to girls, which is very limited by the way, I'd try and feel this certain way. Like I'd just be chasing like this feeling. I don't know what it was, whether that be attraction, whether that be connection. So it's sort of like I guess you'd say intertwined with ROCD a bit, but you know, when like I tried to do that, all my brain was doing was producing this like wrong sensation. So it was quite strange. I know Nick goes on about like in one of his videos, he says about the vagus nerve gets triggered, and like this is exactly what was happening. So I'd try and feel this connection, and my brain would just fire off and say, no, this feels wrong, da 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 da. And then it goes to the whole idea of gut instinct, this is wrong, da da da. But obviously your gut's been hijacked, so you don't know. So that was a big one for me, really trying to just chase connection and feelings. But obviously with OCD, when you try and do that, it just pulls away. So it's just about being at peace with that not being there. And like even if you never had that for the rest of your life, that you'd be all right. And that's when it starts to lift, because when you don't really care about it being there, it starts to come back. And I've noticed that like over the past month or 2 months, I've just had like genuine feelings just flip by towards like, I don't know, for like a girl I'm dating or whatever, like nothing forced, no trying. It's crazy how it works. Like when you don't chase and you just let it be, it comes. So that's a big thing as well with anyone like sort of
It's the same
struggling.
with like what we say on webinars as well, Nick and me, where it's like you can recover only if you don't need recovery. Like if you are really needing it, that's when it kind of escapes you. Like it doesn't come to you. You kind of have to accept that you might not recover, and you don't make it a requirement of your life, and kind of that's what makes you recover.
I
Like
know
eventually.
it's a weird concept because there's nothing else on earth that quite has that perspective. You know, you go to school, you go to university, and you're like, in 4 years, I'm going to graduate. But with OCD recovery, it's the complete opposite. And then what's also unique, and it's very similar to everything we've all experienced, like from the body dysmorphia perspective, and this is, I think, is something that no one can really understand unless you have OCD, that realness. So I had a guy that came in a month ago, HOCD. Elliot, you'll be able to relate with this. He goes, man, he's like, when I look at guys, I'm so aroused, but there's no anxiety. I said, well, you have to think about why. If you had anxiety every time, you would use that as a proving factor. You'd be like, oh, this is OCD, like it's OCD, right? But when it comes with no anxiety, because my fear was losing muscle so badly that if I would just do, this is so crazy to even say, when I would just lift up like a coffee mug, it would feel like my muscles were deteriorating. Like that's how real it felt in my mind. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting smaller. Like I can't walk my dogs. It's too much extra burning calories. And my life was just in this box. And I didn't do that for no reason. I did it because I was so convinced that if I used a little bit more energy than I was allocated, I would just like turn into a skeleton. It was the craziest perspective ever, you know?
No, it feels absolutely real. Like you are 100. Like I was just telling someone today on a call that my mom used to do this if we ever went to the dentist, for example, dentist clinic. When we came back, she would ask me to change my clothes, because she would be like, because we go to a public place where people are coming with, illnesses and diseases. Therefore, like your clothes get kind of dirty, so you have to, throw them in the wash. And so obviously I grew up with that belief in that sense, and it still is there in the background very much. And so when you come back from the dentist clinic, you almost physically feel dirty. You feel that there's something like hooking onto your clothes that needs to be washed out. And it's just like, but again, it's just perception, because obviously you are so like hyper aware that something has touched your clothes.
Isn't it so crazy, the cultural, like look at what Elliot said before. I'd like to hear this from Marianne too. It's like Elliot said about your dad, right? Like, oh, what would my dad think if I looked at the guy? So like those like little subtle things. Me, my mom, as sweet as she is, my mom is very adamant on image. So all growing up. Oh, dude, my whole life, it was like, are you gaining weight? I would come home from college and my mom would be like, you're a little bit heavier. That was like the first thing she'd say to me. So like,
Yeah.
it was such a perspective moment, what you just said about your parents, like with the cleanliness. What about you, Marianne? What would you say, like growing up? What were your parents like? Like, were they big on certain things?
For me, my parents weren't really picky about something, but the society, like at school, so I was like really a very skinny girl. Like I eat a lot and I don't like gain weight. So yeah, exactly.
Moment.
So I used to struggle a lot, like with, oh my God, you're so skinny. Look at you. Why don't you eat? Why don't... So, and I grew up also with this, like, if there's something to eat, I eat a lot. Even if I don't want to eat anymore, I eat more just to, or like even if I feel like the pants is a little bit like bigger on
Loose?
me.
Hmm.
Yeah, loose on me. I be like, I go and eat something heavy just to not lose this weight.
Damn.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. I know. It's so wild when you think about like that driving perspective about culture.
Yeah.
I mean, there.
And I think, well, sorry, Nick, just like quickly on that note, like I think it's just very, I mean, we obviously do encourage people to not go too much into their past and childhood because that is like
Of
an
course.
easy compulsion. But
Yeah.
it is very interesting to just observe like where you gather your beliefs and your information from. Like I was just on a call with someone today. I think I've had maybe like 10, 12 calls with her, probably more actually, but like easily 10, 12. And only today, she brought up because she has like responsibility related fears. So it comes into harm OCD, checking the locks, checking the gas and stuff like that. And I just asked her today randomly. I was like, by the way, when did you first notice like your OCD thoughts coming on? And she was like, yeah, my parents, they're really, they're perfectionists and they always say that, hey, you have to keep the house very clean and fixed all the time. It has to be up and running properly and whatnot. And I was like, do you see the connection? Like that's kind of where you're deriving that
Yeah.
need to not destroy the house by keeping the gas on or the switches on. Like you want to maintain it perfectly because otherwise you feel like you would disappoint them and you would not fulfill that responsibility that's being given to you. And so there's these cues that get stuck in our mind and we just like obsess over them then.
Yeah, I want to add like a note about the guilt, like the responsibility that, for example, also when I was a kid, I used to overstudy because I used to feel guilty if I get like low grades and my mom will feel upset. So I don't want her to feel upset. So I used to overstudy, like, and even read compulsively, like, what if I didn't memorize it? Let me read it again. What if I didn't? Then I read it again.
And
So
think
yeah,
about
it was
the
also a
opposite way.
compulsion.
Think about the opposite way. Like I grew up with a mom from New York City who is very vulgar. So of course I would probably never have a fear about like offending people because my mom is very offensive. So it was just kind of how I was raised. I mean, we always joke like if my mom likes you in about 30 seconds. She has a personality like that. So, but then you look at some people, whether they were, I use the simplest quote like this, right? If you're born with two parents who are bank robbers and from the age of 3, they're like, oh, bank robbing is so good. And you just like grow up in this belief system, you're probably might think that being a bank robber has some merit to your life when you can't think about your thinking. And it's a very unique thing how that works. And when you get better, and I think Moment can relate to this because we have a lot of this on calls. Once you get better, that's when I think it's looking into the past makes a little bit more sense. But in the beginning, like I could dive into my past right now. There's no fear about my past. And now it's just fun to be like, no wonder why I struggled with anger. My mom has really bad anger problems. No wonder. But before it's like, there's a key in the past, right? There's something I'm missing. That's a totally different perspective now.
So
and like I should know it. And if I know, and I should know what happened in the past. If I know, I will be completely free. I will change my life. This
Yeah.
is totally
Yeah,
different
exactly.
perspective.
I spent years doing that. I spent years
Yeah.
trying to analyze my my childhood and that event and this event, and oh God, like I mean I needed to talk about it, yes, but like I talked about it way more than I needed to. Elliot, because I think you were initially going to mention this, but then we switched to Marianne because she was looking sad and quiet, so we had
Who's
to
looking
ask her
sad?
ask her to speak. But like, what were like some of your like early childhood OCD signs now looking back?
Yeah, so it was really funny. So I would have like obsessions with like things with like long tails. It was so weird. So like I'd get like dinosaurs and like different animals and like I literally have like I'd have to have like these different like toys with like long tails. It's so weird, right?
This is the coolest thing I've ever heard, by the way. I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
heard this come
So
out of Elliot's mouth.
honestly, I'd have like about 4 or 5 different pet dinosaurs. I'd have like a chinchilla, which has got like a long tail, and I'd just have a fit if they just like weren't there. And I'd have like every last toy with a long tail, and I'd just like freak out if they weren't there. And then like I'd have stuff with like cleaning as well. So it's weird because I didn't really have like tidiness as I've like gone into adolescence. Like that's not really been there, but like I'd have obsessions with like tidying. So I'd always like hoover stuff. Try and make sure the living room was always clean, all those little different things. So I had like a couple of tendencies in there, to be honest, and I'd just throw like tantrums over it if something wasn't clean or not having stuff with long tails. It's just so weird. Just little things like that. It's so weird.
I assume you weren't a big fan of the Ninja Turtles then because they didn't have tails or long tails.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really a fan of that.
That's incredible. I used to hide my food. Moments for me to talk about this. Once I like left the mental hospital and I like explained to my mom what's going on, my mom said to me, I have conscious memories, but they're faint. I was like 4 years old. My mom would say, I always wondered why you would like hide your food around the house. She's like, you had these behaviors that were so odd that I couldn't explain to anyone because I'm like, why is he taking the peanut butter sandwich, sticking it behind a dresser and pushing the dresser against the food? Dude, I had weird things like that. Yes. I was like, I didn't do that. My mom's like, you wouldn't eat.
Yeah, I used to put things in the fridge, like random things, books, toys, stationery, like just random stuff in the fridge. And this one time I put our cat in the fridge. The cat got pneumonia and died eventually. Which is like
no way.
early psychopathic signs, but
Put my cat in the fridge. That's incredible.
I don't know. I was small. I thought, hey, it would be fun to put the cat in the fridge. And like later, I don't know, an hour later or something, my mom opened the fridge and the cat was freezing in there in the vegetable section.
Oh my God.
Like it was just ridiculous. Now looking back, I'm so sad. Like I'm like, how could I do that? But yeah.
It's so cool. Another one for me. I don't know if you guys can relate to this. Like, it's like a thought switching, but with sensations. I know Moment can relate to this probably from contamination, trying to like gain a clarity on sensations. I was obsessed with water. Like being in a bathtub for 3 hours to like the calming effect of the water. That was because my wife, when we first met, Erica would think, why do you take hour-long baths like twice a day? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I like the way it makes me feel. That's what I would always say. Or the cocoa butter lotion, I would put that on 20. I had no idea. Now looking back, I think, no wonder why sensory motor was a big problem for me. Because I really like sensation.
By the way, I had the water obsession as well. I used to play with the water in the bathroom or like fill the tub with water and just play with water for like 2 hours, 3 hours. Like I love the water. I don't know why. It just felt very nice.
That's crazy.
Non-OCD sufferers would imagine if a non-OCD sufferer just found this video. They're like looking at cat videos. Moment said cat in the video, the algorithm, and they're like, They're like
Takes
calling
up
their
on it.
friends. You're like, are you guys listening to what these people are saying? Are they
Cat
crazy?
killer.
Weirdos, yeah.
And they're laughing about it. There must be, something wrong with that.
Yeah, crazy.
Marianne's harm OCD is probably like, rising up. So since we have like 5 minutes left on the call, Marianne and Elliot, I just want to quickly ask you guys, because we want to do like a part 2 with you guys as well, just to
Yeah.
go into more detail about your journeys and talking about acceptance. But could you both like briefly say where you guys are now, and did you ever think you could be even here? Elliot, you can go first.
Yeah, so I genuinely, like, where I'm at now is just so different. So like I'm very rarely triggered now. So one of my other themes apart from HOCD was just like fear of fear. So I've just had like pumping anxiety for the last sort of year and a half, and like over the last like couple of months or whatever, that's really come down. So I'll go throughout my day now and I'll be triggered like maybe once, sometimes not even that. And yeah, I'm just literally, I'd say like 98% there, 99% there. Like I've been going on dates, I've not really cared how I've felt. Like I'm just not bothered. Like even if I don't feel anything towards anybody, like it's just not that deep. And like, I'm not trying to chase attraction to women anymore. I don't need to check. I don't need to know. You're never going to get that certainty, which is something that I've accepted as well. So honestly, I'm in such a good place. Energy's starting to come back as well. Sleeping better, and yeah, I just feel really good. I just don't have that heavy pumping anxiety that was there for so long, and it's actually happened quite quickly. You think like you have a really bad day and you think you're back to square one and you just, you're in it for the long haul, but sometimes the next day or the next week it's just completely different. And I think that's something that sufferers need to like, know and understand. Just because you feel absolute crap doesn't mean that's like a death sentence. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I've probably still got like, 1 or 2% to go. I still dispute now and then. I still do a bit of reading now and then. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Yeah.
What a change, man. Both of you. I've seen the evolution of both of you. It's so crazy. Like,
honestly,
nuts.
I owe so much to you. I owe so much to like you, Nick, and Rob and Mimi and the whole team. Like honestly, you've actually changed the game for OCD. It's just you've given people like me and Marianne a chance. Like, it's amazing, really. I'm not even joking as well. I know that sounds a bit wet, but it's just true. Like,
I'm leaving. That's it. I'm leaving Erica for Elliot. Erica's out. Elliot in.
Marianne, what do you want to say about where you are today?
For me, I'm also like really far away from where I've been. Like, I don't have panic attacks anymore. Like it's been 2 years without panic attacks, and I'm very good with the uncertainty now. I used to hate it and hate to be patient with everything uncertain. Like I needed to know everything. So now I'm really good at it. And for me, really, it was impossible to sleep in the dark. It was like when Nick told me you need to sleep in the dark, I told him there is no way that I will do this. And he told me you need to watch horror movies. I told him there is no way. Like if I do this, I will be a champion. And now, like I if there's light, I feel like please turn the lights off. Like I need to sleep. So yeah, and you really don't notice the progress until you go long way after it, and after you get distracted with life. Like you can't keep focusing on OCD only. Previously I was focusing only on OCD and I stopped my whole life. But then when I started with Rob and Nick, like I started to like resumed my life, and then bit by bit when I look back I noticed like, okay, I'm no longer doing this. I see life differently. I'm disputing in a different way. No more reassurance. So yeah, it's really different now. Like the calm that you have is like priceless, because as OCD sufferer you don't have calm, like not a minute of calmness. So it's really nice. Yeah,
that's a guys.
Amazing.
I'm incredible, both of you. Seriously.
Yeah, really glad to talk to you guys today.
This was honestly one of my favorite calls, strictly because
in a while. Yeah, I think so. 100%. The others stuck. Others out, Marianne and Elliot in. But
Yeah, for sure. They could just
guys,
suffer in the
we'll
darkness.
see you hopefully next week, or sometime soon. We'll schedule another one, and we'll see you guys here. Thank you for being
Guys,
here. This
thank you so
Thank
much.
That's cool.
you.
Guys
Thank you,
and
guys.
ladies.
Guys, ladies.
Take care,
Okay.
guys. Thank you
See you
so much.